It's Cyclone Sunday with Ben Bruns. Breaking everything down from the Channel Seed Studios. This is Iowa Everywhere.
What is going on? It is Cyclone Sunday here from the Channel Seed Studios on the Iowa Everywhere Network. I'm Aiden Wyatt, joined by Ben Bruns. Ben, it is October 6th, and the Cyclones are 5-0 for the first time since 1980. Where were you in 1980? Were you born yet?
I was two. Oh,
so you remember it well, obviously.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I was, and I was a Hawkeye fan at that point. So a lot can change in 44 years.
Yeah.
But, what a way to start this season. You play the teams that are on your schedule, right? And, I was talking to my brother-in-law last night. He's like, I'm just not sure about Iowa. I'm just not sure how good they are, right? He's like, I don't want that to be the thing that makes us feel too good about this season so far. Because he's like, I'm not sure they're good. And I'm like, interesting. That's a different take. And then you fast forward to Minnesota beating USC, which I'm not sure USC is that good, right? So it was a weird day in college football yesterday. It was a weird game at Jack Trice. And we put the sleeper hold on in the second half. And, it was just kind of like, Kansas State used to do to people. Like, yeah, maybe hang around for a while, but and maybe even get some plays where you're like, wow, we got this figured out. I don't know that I've seen Iowa State's defense on their heels that much with the underneath throws ever, right? The two deep safeties are having to bail out all the time for one wide receiver. And, Baylor was throwing it underneath well. But Iowa State just took care of business and locked them down in the second half. And obviously a couple of huge plays that played into that too.
Yeah, Iowa State 43-21 winners over Baylor. The offense had 542 total yards. That's 7.7 yards per play. What's your biggest takeaway from the offense this week?
Well, some super explosive plays. And, I thought it was interesting too. I'm as an offensive line guy and as a situational guy, there were times where I'm like, okay, it's 3rd and 2. It's 4-down territory, probably. Like, we get under center and run this because we're blowing them off the ball, especially the first drive of the game, right? You think about some of those opportunities. Iowa State's up 2-1 in yardage and is down 7-3 at the end of the first quarter. And Baylor's about to score. And you're like, what is happening? Like, how is that the case? It was interesting hearing Matt Campbell say after the game, there's things that we're going to be upset about. There's things that we're going to look at as coaches on 3rd and 4th down and because we want to be perfect. And I think that those are all fair things, right? I think a fade to Higgins is a great play just about any time. But you got to be able to come back and run it for the first down, right? Higgins makes a great play on 4th down and 4th and 2, similar situation in the early 4th quarter. And a great throw by Rocco to convert. I think there were situations in the game where Iowa State was outstanding, and there were situations in the game where Iowa State wasn't as good. There were situations in the game where Iowa State dominated the line of scrimmage. There were situations in the game where Iowa State didn't get off and get a linebacker blocked and then didn't get anything, right? You got all the down guys covered up. I was glad to see the officials throw a flag for defensive holding finally late in the game. I mean, it's not like Iowa State's offensive line is trying to climb up to the linebacker level, right? And the D-line's just got them locked up like this, and you can't get off. So I'm rambling a little bit, but let's pause just a second on these officials.
Okay.
That was one of the worst jobs I've seen a crew do. From the holding call against Iowa State on the first drive, which was ticky-tack. Right? It was. Doesn't mean it wasn't real. It was a hold, but it was ticky-tack. To then not do that same kind of thing at any moment in which Baylor had the ball blew my mind, right? The pass interference calls that they had on Iowa State early in, and then to not throw a holding call on the big completion to Knoll late in the game. which then had a review associated with it. And you're like, wow, I hope that isn't you see the penalty flag in Iowa State's backfield. And you're like, is that a hold? Because if that's a hold, this whole thing gets called back.
Hmm.
And they tackled Higgins on that play. The outside linebacker, Higgins was in the slot, and he's going down the slot, and he just gets tackled. And you're like, and then no flag comes out, right? Because we complete the bigger pass over the top. But you got to throw a flag there because you don't know what else is going to happen in the rest of the play. And there could be offsetting penalties. And Iowa State certainly shouldn't get backed up in a play where, your slot receiver gets tackled. So I think we're going to see this, right? Officials are in demand from the 7th grade level where my son plays to college football, the NFL. The SEC and the Big Ten pay better for officials. And so they get better crews because they're trying to graduate to that level and they're trying to graduate to the NFL. Well, guess what? We got the remedial cast of characters last night, and they were bad. And frankly, the conference should look really hard at this tape. But back to the offense. Thanks for
hold on. I want to ask you about the targeting quick.
Oh,
what did you think of that?
Come on. So, I don't understand that rule at all. I'm watching TCU Houston, and the TCU guy, this is early in the game, safety for TCU, launches himself, leaves his feet, leads with the crown of his helmet, face of the receiver who just caught the ball. And the sound on TV was like, this like that, it had that hollow sound, that like the sound of energy being destroyed, right? Like, and everyone's like, oh, and then you watch it again and you're like, yeah, he led with the crown of his helmet. He launched himself right at the head and neck area of the receiver who was making a football play, but it didn't matter, right? Like he's in the middle of making a move. He's still upright. You contrast that, and it was they did a booth review and they said it wasn't targeted. Okay. All right. So you come to our game and you get a targeting call on the field when the DB for Iowa State is turning his head like this, trying to make sure that he doesn't hit with the crown of his helmet as the guy's going to the ground, scrambling for the football, and he's pulling up and off, and he never launches himself. And I don't get it, right? And then they review it and they call it target. Like, I was at the game, so I wasn't watching the broadcast, but apparently Dean Blandino's reaction to it was negative.
Really? I guess I didn't see that either.
That's what he said. He said, he's like, I don't see targeting here. And then, of course, they come back from commercial and they say, well, from this angle, yeah, maybe, right? It's like, you're just helping the conference and the officials save face. And I get that that's part of the deal, right? TV's trying to not convict people who have a hard job, right? Officials have a hard job. They do. That was, in my opinion, not the definition of targeting in any way, shape, or form. And to have it reviewed that way, I just don't get it, right? So I wasn't a fan of that either. But you know what? Like, how about a holding call when one guy's on the ground and they're not letting him up, and another guy has two guys holding him so that he can't release to pass rush the quarterback? It's like, I just want consistency. And if you're going to call it like ticky-tack early, then you better call it ticky-tack throughout, right? So.
Yeah. Anyway, back to the offense.
Back to the full circle.
The Jalen Jackson game.
Dude.
15 carries, 107 yards, pair of touchdowns. Carson Anson also had 15 carries for 97 yards. What's your takeaway from the running back room this weekend?
Well, I tell you, I'm going to go back to something my brother-in-law said because it gives me immunity. He's like, this is Jalen Jackson's starting role until it's not. Like, wow, it's interesting. That's a good point. That's hard to disagree with. At the same time, Carson Hansen showed me something that, I had felt like, I just didn't see the explosiveness from him that I saw from the other two guys early in the season, right? He had a hell of a game. I actually think that was better than his game, a couple of weeks ago where he had a couple touchdowns. I think that was a really fine football game by both those guys. I think Sama, everybody's asking. I hear people like buzz and talk about, hey, where's Sama? I just feel like guys go through evolutions as they grow and as they work out, where sometimes you you're growing your strength and power levels, and sometimes you're refining your strength and power levels. I feel like Abu really grew his strength and power levels, and now he needs to refine those strength and power levels, right? So the swivel in his hips and the little shimmy, big strong dude, right? Like it's clear that he did the work in the weight room. But I think he has to grow into it a little bit. And I think once that happens, he'll be even more dynamic than he is now, right? As it stands now, he can get a home run. These other two guys are electric and in different ways, right? Hansen running with just a nasty energy, and Jackson perfect in fitting behind that big offensive line and just slipping into spots and then breaking big plays. And the cutback that he had for the first touchdown, that play is not designed to go that far back. I mean, it was stuffed at the point of attack, and for him to just be patient and go make that play, that was a really, really, really good football play. And the juke, on the last touchdown, a lot of guys are trying to run to the pylon, but he didn't even let that guy get finished targeting, acquiring him, right? It's like the guy's trying to track him, and all of a sudden he's back inside. That was big time. But none of that happens unless the offensive line and the tight ends are doing good stuff. And that Rocco is running the thing as well. And I thought there were times where we were dominant. There were times where we weren't as consistent. But hats off to Baylor. I thought that defensive front played really well once they settled into the game and made it harder for Iowa State to run. And Iowa State still ran it for 260.
Not a bad day at the office.
Whoa.
One last thing on the offense. I want to get your opinion here. Last night in the press box, I had Jeff Woody on one side, Chris Williams on the other. Jeff loved the T formation. Meanwhile, Chris is like, you need 5 receivers in the game. He says in his world, he would not have running backs if he had it his way. Everyone would be a slot receiver.
Well, yeah, we know. Yeah. Hal Mummy was an incredible innovator, right?
Yes.
But no, so tell you what, I like to run the football. My son's 7th grade team runs the power T, right? 3 running backs, right? And a quarterback. Yep. And 2 tight ends in tight. And it's super limiting in terms of what you can do. It just is.
Well, it might be perfect for 7th grade football.
2-back lead, right? Okay, right? But I think defenses are so athletic. And here's the thing. When you've never showed a formation like that all season long, why would anybody believe your counteraction off of it? So I think interesting idea. Maybe we're setting it up for earlier, for later in the year, right? We're starting to sprinkle it in and say, here's something that people have to defend. I like that. I don't hate the formation at all. I think it's good to be able to do something from that stack eye where you give a team a different look. And it's certainly something that you can throw the ball out of, horizontally a little bit differently. But that wasn't a good play. Like it didn't come off, right? So I hate to agree with C-Dub, but in this case, the proof was in the pudding. So
yeah, he threw Woody. How's that tea looking? Cyclone Sunday here on Iowa Everywhere from the Channel Seed Studios. Ben Bruns, Aiden, Wyatt. Iowa State wins 43-21 to move to 5-0. Caden Mattson got his moment last night. Miles Mendezoon blocks a punt. I thought the most impressive thing was Iowa State blocked a punt without Darian Porter on the field.
Yeah. And we miss him a lot. We really do. I mean, I think his length is a difference maker. And, Jontez Williams acquitted himself pretty well, but Baylor was set to pick on him. I mean, that just, their second touchdown was 100% targeted at him. We didn't get the safety over the top because of the run fake. But, low snap, punter goes down to get it. And, in the past, we've seen Iowa State teams when there's a miscue like that for our opposition, just, keep the return on. Well, the problem is, like, if it takes that long, right, the ball's on the ground and you got to pick it up and you're going to punt it. And, now you got no return because coverage is down there, right? You might as well go block that punt. If it's going to go on the ground, go get it, right? And so I just think the balance in special teams coaching to recognize the situation. I'm not sure it was a punt block call. I don't know that it was. But I do know that the guys recognized that the ball was on the ground and that they would have a split second to go after it and that they could be aggressive in throwing themselves at the punter because, you got a good shot at it. And, heads up play by Mendezoon and, the scoop and score is just – that was a huge difference maker in the game.
Mm-hmm.
It really broke the game open.
We talked a little bit before the show. Cooper Ebel and Jacob Ellis were dudes last night. And, we've talked about it for 5 games now, how thin Iowa State is at linebacker. How big is it for them to step up?
Yeah, really big. I mean, I feel like Ebel has played a hell of a season, right? I mean, just really, really, really good. And, for Ellis to come in and play that much with Radzina going down, it's like, man, this is that defense is thin, right? I mean, Dom Orange went out, Singleton went out, you got Porter out.
And Dom Orange had his pads off at one point. Like, we didn't think he was going back in the game.
Thank God
from the
he
press
got
box.
back. It was such I was relieved. I didn't realize he'd gone back in the game. Then I saw him come back out again. I'm like, oh, thank goodness, right? Like, this is a guy that is a difference. They're all difference makers, right? And the cool part about this team is every single guy that gets a chance has been accountable. He's been connected and committed. And, Aiden, that like for that to happen from your starters all the way through guys who never thought they would see the field this season, and for everybody to be that focused tells you how committed this football team is. And I think that's representative of great coaching. And so, and great leadership on the team.
Yeah. Talking about great leadership and stuff, it would not be Cyclone Sunday if we didn't bring up Dan McCarney.
Yeah. I love it, man.
Coach Mack was in the locker room last night. Let's check it out.
This team, without question, has a chance to be the best that I've ever seen pull on an Iowa State uniform since 1995. Stay hungry, keep the edge, keep listening to these coaches, and we got a chance to have a hell of a year. There's no question. It's all in this room. There's no question.
Hey, listen, let's with Coach Mack, okay? Hey, give me this. Caden Mattson. Yeah! Ryland Barnes. Yeah! Miles Mendezoon. Yeah! Hey, Jalen Jackson. Yeah! Hey, how about Carson Hansen? Yeah! Hey, let's go. Let's start this bad boy up.
Yeah, baby, let's go right there.
Fight for our state, and may the colors ever fly. And we will fight for our state, with a will to do or die. Rah, 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 loyal sons forever true. And we will fight the battle through. And when we hit that line, we'll hit it hard every time. ISU!
And we can only assume there that they cut off the part where Mac inevitably said, "You took them out to the woodshed and kicked their ass." You know?
There was definitely an F-bomb in the version that I saw. Here's the thing, man. So I'm watching that video, and I see Iowa State in iced out stormtrooper uniforms standing inside of a locker room that is unbelievable. Like, you know, that thing is sick. And I mean, when Mac took this thing over, there were rats in the facility, right? Like, it just is so wild to see where we are today. You know, to a sold out stadium that's rocking, and you know, everybody shows up, almost everybody. I had to help with a wardrobe change of my buddy Curtis, but you know, because he doesn't own a white article of clothing apparently, other than an undershirt. Like, Curtis, come on, here, put on this pretty jersey that my son was supposed to wear to the game. He's sick. It's crazy how far this program has come, and you know, Mac. The other thing that Mac said in that clip is he was talking about the best coach in college football, Mac Hamlin. And, you know, I mean, who's the best coach that has ever coached college football? Like, you would have to say Nick Saban, right? Like, that's the modern statement, right? And then Bear Bryant maybe before, you know, and there are others, right? The legends. I'm going to tell you, I think Bill Snyder is the job that Bill Snyder did better than the job that Nick Saban did? I don't know. I think they're right. They're like neck and neck, man, because the situations are so different.
Mm-hmm.
I think Matt Campbell is doing the Bill Snyder job. Like, I think he's in the place that's hard to win. He's in the place where it takes it's a little different thing, right? And you know, he went to Pitt and played his first year, and he didn't like it, right? He didn't like the whatever that vibe was, and so he went to Mount Union and fell in love with that vibe, right? Iowa State is a special place, and it's a special place because it's got a different vibe. It's off the beaten path, you know. It's not the same old thing, but like, look at the locker room. Look at the gear. Look at the athletes. Look at the guys in the NFL. Look at the guys in the NFL who love Iowa State. Love Iowa State. They talk about it all the time. Like, that's not every school, you know? It's just not. Mm-hmm. And I think you know, those two guys as leaders of this program have been incomparably wonderful, and they shared their gifts and their talent with us as the Iowa State community, and with those guys as players. And you see it in this team. Like, I don't know how far we can go, right? You know, we got a big test in Morgantown this week. Huge. That's a good football team.
Yeah.
But you know, you see Vanderbilt beat Alabama. Like, college football is a wide open place right now. And, you know, there's some super elite teams, right? You get into that playoff, it's going to be tough sledding. But what an interesting opportunity ahead. And five.
Yep, absolutely agree. All right, I think it's a good spot to get out of here, unless you got anything else.
Those officials were terrible.
All right.
Clip that up and put that somewhere, will you? All right.
All right, this has been Cyclone Sunday. Ben Bruns, Aiden Wyatt here in the Channel Seed Studios. We will see you next week here on the Iowa Everywhere Network.